You know, a lot of law school graduates and laterals approach the job market already feeling defeated. If you come to the search afraid that there won't be a job for you, there may not. If you come to the search thinking that you'll have to take the first job that comes along, because it may be the only job that comes along, then it may be. If you come to the job search believing everything you've heard said about conservative traditional techniques for searching, then it may take you longer to find a job because you're not differentiating or distinguishing yourself, and other people are. I've heard a lot of standard job search advice, and you may have heard it too. I'm talking about the kind of advice that tells you that your resume can only be one page, no matter where you are along the spectrum of your career. Or if you have a prior career, that you need to keep it off your legal resume, that you can only include law-related information, that there's a standard formula starting with education at the top, that when you go to write your cover letter, it can only be 3 paragraphs, and by the way, here's what each paragraph should say. This is the kind of advice I don't want you to follow. This is the kind of advice I want you to understand keeps you down in the job market. If you're a night student who works during the day, put that on your resume. If you had a prior career, include that on your resume. Think about subheadings that will move the ball forward. Instead of just calling everything experience, you could talk about prior teaching experience as communication experience. If you had a job in journalism, you could talk about your prior communication or writing experience, and you could take and not just list your tasks for every job you've ever had, which becomes a list, and by the way, fairly repetitive list at that on a resume, but you could also infuse your resume with things like that. In your journalism role, you honed a well-dedicated respect for detail, accuracy, and deadline. Now, if you're uncomfortable with the thought of that on your resume, then I don't want you to do it. You need a resume that you're comfortable with, but you can put those kinds of things into a cover letter. Never forget that you've got another vehicle for foreshadowing the resume, for drawing out the reader actually of your cover letter to think and conclude that which you want him or her to think and conclude. It's a lawyer's task to write a good resume and great cover letter, and I want you to welcome those tasks as opposed to fearing that they won't make a difference for you in your search. I acknowledge that this can be a very tough market. I get it. I know you're competing against a lot of other people looking for the same kind of jobs, and that's exactly why you need to do things a little bit differently. That's exactly why you need to rid your job search of legalese. Get rid of the enclosed please find, my resume, heretofore mentioned, roles. Those are not the kind of things that warm up a meeting between a prospective employer and possible employee. And here's the thing, you're going to be asked to answer a lot of questions that you may not think are good questions, but you're not to be the judge of those questions. If you get asked to trite questions, something you think, oh, again, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, you need to be able to answer those questions as if you welcome them, and you need to show that you're not avoiding them. So yes, everybody tries to frame a weakness as if it were a strength, but don't be so obvious about it, please. Be thoughtful, be willing to engage, be willing to admit some humanity in the past and that you are very enthusiastic about the future. You need to be professional, absolutely, but you also need to be memorable. And let me tell you, the best way to be memorable at an interview and distinguish yourself, oddly enough, from all the other people, or most of the other people who are interviewing, is for you to focus on the client. Focus not on yourself at these interviews and what this job could do for you, or how fast a learner you are, and how you could pick up the tasks needed. Focus on helping that employer with his or her goals and the goals of their organization to meet the needs of the client. Believe me, you'll be memorable in a positive and professional way, and I'm going to tell you that you'll be able to get the kinds of jobs you want. Thanks for watching. I hope with this advice you'll be able to increase the chances of finding the job you really want. I'm Kathy Morris, coming to you from Chicago.